Does the idea of showing up at a networking event make you break out in a sweat? Hi, I'm Deirdre Harter, a CPA and business strategy coach. And this is my partner, Carmen Reed-Gilkison, a certified whole person coach. We started our business, EncoreEmpire.com, to help women in midlife who want to grow a profitable online business in a way that leverages their unique life experience and honors their values to provide the financial and time freedom they have worked so long and so hard to attain.
That's right. And today we're going to help all of you introverted networkers out there. And to let you in on a little secret, we ourselves are introverted. It took us a little while to get used to coming live on these videos, and it just takes practice. So we're going to cover the following 3 points today. Do it scared mindset hack is number 1. The permission not to sell is the second point. And number 3 is how being introverted is actually your superpower. So we're going to flip the script on all of this scary stuff for introverts. And we want to make sure that you watch to the end to find out how to eliminate being caught off guard at a networking event.
So let's talk about doing it scared. Now, there's a few tips here we want to share with you. And this is what worked for us. It's what worked for me. When I first started out in my career, that's when I first had to start networking. And let me tell you, it was, to me, it was like going to the dentist. Like, I just really hated it. And I was like so nervous. And at that time it was in person. And now most of our networking events are virtual, but they will eventually go back to having in person. But no matter which way you do it, these will help you. I hope these will help you too. So the first thing is to make it a logical decision and not an emotional decision. And by that, I mean, just like you, even if you don't like going to the dentist, like I don't like going, you decide it's important and you need to do it. And so you book the appointment and you put it on your calendar and you go. So if you can look at it more clinically like that and not think about the emotional piece of it, just know that you're going to be okay and that you have to do this and you're going to do this. And the next thing that helped me is to decide ahead of time that you're just going to show up, period. Like, my mantra is, if it gets on the calendar, it gets done. So that's something that if you're going to do it, take it seriously. And if it's on there, you just go. Now, one thing to make this a little bit easier is give yourself permission to be an observer. And then that takes the pressure off. Like, you don't have to be the star networker at the event. You can just say, you know what, I'm just going to go and check it out and see what happens. And then sometimes that takes a lot of the pressure off for you. Also, think back to things you've done in the past that were scary at first. And I bet you'll find if you kept doing it, that the fear vanished the more that you did it. And remember, if you've done it before, you can do it again.
That's right. And so I'm going to share a little story about the first in-person networking event that I went to a few years ago. I had to travel to it. It was in person. It was after work, driving up to the big city. And the closer I got, the more sick to my stomach I got. I mean, I was like, felt like an imposter. I'm going to go in there and make a fool of myself. Everyone there is going to know what they're going to have it all together. I don't know what I'm doing. All those, negative self-talk things were happening. And that's what tends to keep us stuck. But I willed myself. I found a parking spot. It was really crowded and I had to park far away. And it was like everything I could do to move each footstep closer to get to the place. And I seriously felt like I was going to be sick. But I did it anyway. And one of the biggest things that keeps us scared about networking events is the fact that we feel like you have to sell yourself, right? You don't want to go in and face negativity and rejection. So what we're giving you today is permission not to sell. In fact, you don't want to sell. The point of a networking event is not to make things about you, which every introvert will be happy to hear, but it's to put the focus on everyone else, right? So when you meet someone, it's just like if you're at a party and best practices and how are you polite with other people. You don't come barreling into a party and run up to someone and say, hey, I got this thing. You want to buy it? Hey, it's super cool because XYZ, blah, blah, blah. You don't do that. You introduce yourself, you have a little conversation, back and forth conversation, and you make sure that you're asking questions. So being a good networker is being polite and being a good listener. So we want to make sure that you don't have to sell. And so when you go in as an observer, which was a great point that Deirdre just brought up, you're observing and you're just there to get to know people. That's it. So think of it as a cocktail party if you're in an in-person thing. That's what I kind of ended up doing. And I met two of the most wonderful people at that first scary one for me, who are still friends and networking buddies with me now. And then when you are on a Zoom call, it's the same thing, right? You're still networking and you're still not going there to sell. So I think it's the number one misconception is that people think they have to go and sell themselves, and you do not. In fact, you don't want to do that. You want to start building relationships. And the way you do this is by attending. You find, 2 or 3 that fit with your goals, the results you want out of the networking, and you attend those regularly so you can build the relationships. And then it's not scary. And then it's like going in to meeting a bunch of your old friends every time you see them, and you'll start looking forward to it. And that's going to help change the dynamic of networking for you in every instance. And Deirdre's going to tap into how being introverted is your superpower now. And these are some really good points she's got.
Thanks, Carmen. Yeah, it's perspective is our reality, right? So when you tell yourself, "Oh, I'm an introvert," and it's true, but it doesn't have to be a negative thing. I think a lot of times people kind of see that as a weakness, but it actually, every weakness has a superpower, and we've seen it in the superhero movies, right? Everyone has superpowers, but then there's the flip side. So you can turn that into your superpower. And here's what I mean by that. You can go in and watch and learn what's going on. That is comfortable for you. And it's beneficial for you because you can be more observant than other people. When you're talking, it's hard to observe. And so if you're more introverted and more quiet, you can learn an awful lot by watching other people. Mm-hmm. And if you're new or uncomfortable when you're at these networking events, if you're just getting started, or even if you're not getting started, you've done it before, but maybe you're just having an uncomfortable kind of day, then you can pull the "I'm just getting started" card. And you can ask for advice because people love to give advice, especially the ones who you notice are very outgoing and they're, really talking it up, and you can tell that they've done this a bunch of times before. So when you get with them, you can just say, I'm kind of new to this, and do you have any tips for me? And then all you have to do is sit back and listen, and they'll give you all kinds of great information. And listening is the most important part when you're networking, because the better you can listen, the more you learn about that person and the better you can connect with them. So that is your superpower, because you don't have to be the one doing all the talking. You don't have to be the one that's chatting it up. We're all different, and it makes for a great networking event when you have some people who, are talking more and some that are doing the listening part. The other thing to remember is that momentary silence is your friend. When someone is talking and you're talking back and forth, and all of a sudden you kind of run out of something to say, or you're just not quite sure where to take the conversation next, just be still for a moment. Now, it might feel like a long time, but 15 seconds is really all you have to wait. And the next person, the other person, will most likely jump in and keep the conversation going. So try this, with a friend, see how it feels. So you can practice this ahead of time. And we've got some more preparation tips for you here too. So that's one of those. The other is to set your intention for the event. If you know ahead of time what your goal is, and even if it's only to observe or only to get more comfortable or just to plain show up, if that's your intent, then know that you reached the intent. You're just going to show up and you're going to be there, and that's your win for the day. And if anything else happens after that, then that's just bonus, right? The other thing is to have engaging questions at the ready. So if you have a list of questions that you can ask people, you're always going to know how to keep the conversation moving. Now, here's one that's tried and true, and it's tell me about you. So if you write that phrase down and remember it, tried and true, tell me about you. So if you remember that one, then that will always open up the conversation, because most everybody loves to talk about themselves and what they do. And one final tip is, if you can't think of questions to ask, you can always, Google's our friend, right? We can find everything on the internet. So Google icebreaker questions. I've done this. There's a ton of them out there. And look at the ones surrounding your particular business, your particular field, and also have a couple friends and family kind of icebreaker questions. So those have been vetted and tried and tested, and they're published out there on the web all over the place. So I'm sure you'll find a few good ones that you can use at your next networking event.
That's right. And another way to not get caught off guard is to make sure that you are prepared with your 30 or 60-second elevator pitch about who you are, who you help, and how you help them. So you want to make sure you have that. And you also want to make sure you have a system ready to be able to jot notes down about the people you're meeting. In-person networking events, you can exchange business cards, and that's a great way to do it. But sometimes when you get home and you have 30 business cards, you can't attach the card, place the card with the person again, right? You've forgotten. You met so many people. You were there for a couple hours. You got all these cards. And you're like, my gosh, I don't remember. So take time, if you're in an in-person one, to jot some notes on the back about what will help you remember. Like, you had a little discussion about whatever. Jot a note on the back, or have a little notebook. And then, of course, when you're online and you're attending these networking events, you have a little bit more preparation right at hand, because you can take notes on your computer. You can take notes on a notepad next to your computer. You just want to make sure that you are prepared to share about you and to receive information about others, so that when you leave that event, you can look back at your notes and go, okay, I want to reach back out to this person, and you know exactly why, you know who they are, and you know what your intention is for reaching out. Now, we host the Empire of Unstoppable Women, which is a private free Facebook group, and we help women who are starting or growing their business, and we host networking events every month. What we do during these events, we host speed networking, which is actually a lot of fun. But before we get into our breakout rooms, where everyone has a real good chance to get to know the other attendees really well, and you get to find out if you've got any potential referral partners or even clients, we do a little bit of training before each event, and we give tips and tricks as to how you can get the most out of the event. So we hope that you'll join us at the Empire of Unstoppable Women. It's for women over 40 who are starting or growing their business. We'll drop the information down below this video, and we hope to see you there.